A 12-year-old boy stood in an auto shop holding a wrench, facing a room full of laughing mechanics. "Does this engine run on water, kid?" they mocked. But when the millionaire owner walked in and saw what the boy had done, the laughter died, and the truth changed everything. Tyler Hayes was 12 years old when he learned that some people measured your worth by the grease under your fingernails, rather than the knowledge in your head. The morning sun filtered through the dust-covered windows of Anderson's Premium Auto Repair in Houston, casting long shadows across the concrete floor where Tyler pushed a broom that was almost as tall as he was. He'd been here since 6 a.m., 2 hours before the mechanics arrived, sweeping, organizing tools, emptying trash bins. The same routine he'd followed every day after school for the past 8 months. $50 a week. That's what Mr. Anderson paid him. It wasn't much, but it kept the electricity on in the tiny apartment he shared with his Aunt Linda, who worked double shifts at a diner downtown and still barely made rent. Tyler didn't mind the work. The shop was the only place that felt like home anymore. Not because of the people. Most of them ignored him, treated him like part of the furniture, but because of the cars, the engines, the machinery that made sense in ways the rest of his life didn't. "Hey, kid, you missed a spot." Tyler looked up. Rick Donovan stood in the doorway of the main garage bay, coffee in hand, pointing at a section of floor Tyler had already swept twice. Rick was the lead mechanic, 42 years old, 20 years of experience, and the kind of confidence that came from never being challenged. "I got it," Tyler said quietly, pushing the broom back over the already clean floor. Rick smirked. "That's what you're good for, right? Cleaning up other people's messes." Tyler didn't respond. He'd learned that responding to Rick only made things worse. The other mechanics started filtering in. Carlos Rodriguez, the youngest at 28, gave Tyler a sympathetic nod. The others, Mike, Danny, and Frank, barely acknowledged his existence. To them, Tyler was just the kid who swept floors and stayed out of the way. "All right, listen up," Rick called out, and the morning chatter died down. "We got a big one today. Mr. Whitmore's bringing in his prototype. Some experimental hybrid engine that nobody in the city can figure out. He's offering $20 grand to whoever can diagnose and fix it." $20,000. Tyler's broom stopped moving. That was more money than he could imagine. More than his aunt made in a year. 20 grand? Mike whistled. "What's wrong with it? If I knew that, I'd already have it fixed," Rick said. "All I know is that 3 other shops have looked at it and couldn't figure it out. Whitmore's about ready to junk the whole car. This is our chance to prove Anderson's is the best shop in Houston." Tyler's mind was already racing. A prototype hybrid engine. Experimental. The kind of thing his father would have been excited about. His father, David Hayes, aerospace engineer, dead for 2 years now in a car accident that Tyler still had nightmares about. But before he died, he'd left Tyler something precious. A notebook, filled with designs, calculations, theories about next-generation fuel systems, hydrogen fuel cells, electric hybrid systems, things that were years ahead of their time. Tyler had spent countless nights reading that notebook by flashlight, teaching himself the physics and engineering his father had tried to explain to him when he was younger. He'd never told anyone about it. What would be the point? He was 12. Nobody would take him seriously. "Kid!" Rick's voice snapped Tyler back to reality. "Stop daydreaming and finish sweeping. We got work to do." Tyler nodded, pushing his broom toward the corner. But his eyes stayed on the mechanics as they gathered around Rick, discussing strategies for the Whitmore job. An hour later, a flatbed truck pulled into the lot carrying a sleek silver vehicle that looked like it cost more than Tyler's entire neighborhood. Mr. James Whitmore stepped out of a following Mercedes, tall, silver-haired, expensive suit, the kind of man who was used to problems being solved with money. "Gentlemen," Whitmore said, his voice carrying the authority of someone who'd built empires. "This is a prototype hydrogen-electric hybrid. Cost me $2 million to develop. Doesn't work. Can't figure out why. Fix it, and the $20,000 is yours." The mechanics swarmed around the vehicle like sharks. Tyler stayed back, broom in hand, but his eyes were locked on the engine as they popped the hood. It was beautiful, complex, exactly the kind of system his father's notebook had detailed. Rick was shouting orders, assigning tasks. Mike and Danny started running diagnostics. Frank checked the electrical systems. Carlos examined the fuel lines. Tyler saw the problem immediately. The hydrogen fuel cell was installed backward. The polarity was reversed. It was a simple mistake, probably happened during assembly, but it meant the entire power generation system was fighting against itself instead of working together. He should say something. He should tell them. But he was 12 years old with grease-stained hands and clothes from the donation center. Who would listen? I don't get it, Mike said after an hour of testing. Everything checks out individually, but the system won't generate power. Must be a design flaw, Rick muttered. Maybe this hybrid technology just doesn't work. It's not a design flaw, Tyler said quietly. Everyone turned to look at him. He hadn't meant to speak. The words had just slipped out. What did you say, kid? Rick's voice was dangerous. Tyler's heart pounded. I said, it's not a design flaw. The system is fine. It's just installed wrong. The garage fell silent. Carlos looked uncomfortable. Mike and Danny exchanged glances. Rick's face flushed red. Installed wrong, Rick repeated slowly. You, a 12-year-old janitor, think you know more about engines than mechanics with decades of experience. I didn't mean— No, please, Rick interrupted, his voice dripping with sarcasm. Enlighten us. What's wrong with the engine, kid? Tyler knew he should shut up, should go back to sweeping. But he thought about his father, about all those nights reading the notebook, about how his dad had always said that knowledge mattered more than age or title. The hydrogen fuel cell, Tyler said, his voice shaking but determined. It's installed backward. The polarity is reversed. You can see it if you check the positive and negative terminals against the manufacturer's specs. Rick stared at him for a long moment. Then he laughed. It started as a chuckle and built into a full belly laugh that echoed through the garage. Did you hear that, boys? Rick called out. The kid thinks the fuel cell is backward. He turned back to Tyler. What's next? You gonna tell me the engine runs on water? The other mechanics laughed. Nervous, obligatory laughter that came from people who didn't want to be Rick's next target. Only Carlos stayed quiet, looking between Rick and Tyler with an expression Tyler couldn't read. Does this engine run on water, kid? Rick continued, his voice getting louder. Is that your expert diagnosis? Maybe we should just fill it up at the sink. Tyler's face burned. He wanted to disappear, to melt into the floor he'd spent all morning sweeping. I'm sorry, he whispered. I shouldn't have said anything. You're right about that, Rick said coldly. You're here to clean, not to think. Stick to what you're good at. Tyler grabbed his broom and retreated to the corner, blinking back tears. Behind him, he heard the mechanics go back to work, their voices low as they discussed other possibilities. But none of them checked the fuel cell polarity. The day wore on. Tyler finished sweeping and moved to organizing the tool room, trying to stay invisible. Through the doorway, he could see the mechanics getting more frustrated. They'd torn apart half the engine and still couldn't figure it out. This is impossible, Mike said around 3 p.m. Everything looks right. We're missing something, Rick admitted, his pride clearly wounded. But I'll figure it out. I always do. At 5 p.m., Mr. Anderson arrived. Robert Anderson, the shop owner. 68 years old, weathered hands, kind eyes. He'd inherited the shop from his father and built it into one of the most respected repair businesses in Houston. He was the one who'd hired Tyler when Aunt Linda had come begging for any kind of work her nephew could do. How's it going with the Whitmore job? Anderson asked. Rick's jaw tightened. Still diagnosing. Complex system. We'll have it figured out by tomorrow. Anderson walked over to the prototype, studying it thoughtfully. Tyler watched from the tool room as the owner examined the engine, his experienced eyes taking in every detail. Hydrogen-electric hybrid, Anderson said. Ambitious. Your father would have loved this, Tyler. Tyler froze. Anderson rarely mentioned his father, but when he did, it always felt like being stabbed and hugged at the same time. Yes, sir, Tyler managed. David was brilliant with this kind of thing, Anderson continued, almost to himself. Way ahead of his time. Rick's expression darkened at the praise for Tyler's dead father. With respect, Mr. Anderson, brilliance doesn't help us fix this engine. We need practical solutions. Sometimes, Anderson said quietly. The practical solution is listening to brilliance, wherever it comes from. He looked at Tyler. Your father left you his notebooks, didn't he? Tyler nodded, surprised Anderson knew about them. Read them much? Every night, Tyler admitted. Anderson smiled sadly. Good. Knowledge is the one inheritance they can't take from you. He turned back to Rick. Keep at it. But remember, sometimes the answer comes from unexpected places. After Anderson left, Rick's mood was even worse. He worked with aggressive intensity, barking orders, rejecting suggestions. The other mechanics moved carefully around him, knowing better than to provoke him when he was like this. At 6 p.m., the day shift ended. The mechanics filed out, leaving the prototype sitting in the middle of the garage bay, still broken, still mysterious. "Kid," Rick called as Tyler was about to leave, "make sure you lock up the tool room. Mr. Anderson's trusting you with that responsibility. Don't screw it up." The emphasis on trusting you and "don't screw it up" made it clear what Rick thought about that trust. Tyler nodded and waited until everyone was gone. The shop fell silent except for the humming of the fluorescent lights and the distant sound of traffic on the street outside. He should go home. Aunt Linda would have dinner ready, probably mac and cheese again, but it would be warm and she'd ask about his day and pretend everything was okay, even though Tyler knew she was exhausted. But he couldn't stop thinking about the engine. Tyler walked over to the prototype, his heart pounding. He shouldn't touch it. It wasn't his. He was just the janitor. But his father's voice echoed in his head. "Being right matters more than being comfortable, Tyler. If you know something is wrong and you can fix it, you have a responsibility to try." Tyler pulled his father's notebook from his backpack, worn, water-stained, filled with David Hayes's careful handwriting. He flipped to the section on hydrogen fuel cells and studied the diagrams. Then he looked at the engine. His father had been right about the polarity. Tyler could see it now, clear as day. The positive and negative terminals were reversed. Whoever had assembled this prototype had made a simple but critical mistake. He checked the clock. 6:15. He had maybe 2 hours before the building's security system activated. Tyler took a deep breath, grabbed a wrench, and got to work. His hands shook as he loosened the fuel cell housing. This was crazy. If he broke something, they'd fire him. Aunt Linda would be so disappointed. They might even try to make him pay for damages they couldn't afford. But if he was right, if he could fix this, maybe they'd see he was more than just a kid with a broom. The work was delicate. The fuel cell weighed almost 40 pounds, and Tyler's 12-year-old arms strained as he carefully removed it, reversed it, and reinstalled it with the correct polarity. Every connection had to be perfect. Every wire had to be exactly right. His father's notebook guided him, each page a conversation across death. "See how the hydrogen molecules split?" his father's handwriting explained. "The catalyst only works if the electrical current flows in the right direction." By 7:30, Tyler was covered in sweat. His arms ached, but the fuel cell was reinstalled correctly. Every connection checked and double-checked against the diagrams in the notebook. Now came the moment of truth. Tyler sat in the driver's seat. He could barely reach the pedals, and turned the key. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the engine hummed to life. Not the roar of a traditional engine, but a smooth, almost silent sound. The dashboard lit up, showing full power generation from the hydrogen system feeding into the electric motors. It worked. Tyler had fixed a $2 million prototype that 3 professional shops couldn't figure out. He sat there for a moment, hardly believing it, his father's notebook open on his lap. Then he carefully shut down the system, closed the hood, and returned everything to exactly how it had been. Except now, the engine worked. Tyler locked up the tool room, set the security system, and walked home through the Houston darkness, his secret burning in his chest like a star. Tomorrow, when Rick and the others arrived, they'd find the engine mysteriously fixed. They'd probably take credit. Rick would claim he'd figured it out. Mr. Whitmore would pay the $20,000, and Tyler would go back to sweeping floors. But Tyler would know the truth, and sometimes, knowing the truth was enough. Or at least, that's what Tyler told himself as he climbed the stairs to his apartment, where Aunt Linda was waiting with cold mac and cheese and a tired smile that tried to hide how worried she was about making rent. What Tyler didn't know, couldn't know, was that Anderson's premium auto had security cameras. And tomorrow morning, when Mr. Anderson reviewed the footage, he would see everything. The truth Tyler thought would stay hidden was about to change his life forever. Mr. Robert Anderson arrived at his shop at 5:30 a.m., which wasn't unusual. At 68, He'd learned that the quiet hours before dawn were when a man could think clearly before the noise of the day drowned out wisdom. He unlocked the front office, made coffee in the ancient machine that had been there longer than most of his mechanics, and settled into his chair to review the previous day's security footage. It was a habit he'd developed after a theft incident years ago. Nothing serious, just tools going missing, but the routine had stuck. He started with the main garage bay, fast-forwarding through the daytime footage. Rick and the crew working on the Whitmore prototype. Tyler sweeping in the background, small and invisible. The frustration growing on the mechanics' faces as hours passed without progress. Then everyone leaving at 6 p.m. The garage falling dark and empty. Anderson reached for his coffee, ready to skip to the morning footage, when movement caught his eye. Someone was still in the shop. He sat up straighter, rewinding and playing at normal speed. Tyler. The boy had stayed behind. Anderson watched as Tyler approached the prototype, pulling something from his backpack. A notebook. Tyler opened it, studied pages carefully, then looked at the engine with an intensity that reminded Anderson of. His breath caught. David Hayes, Tyler's father. That same focused expression when David used to solve impossible problems, back when they'd worked together. On screen, Tyler was working. Not randomly, not guessing. Moving with purpose. Removing the fuel cell housing with hands that shook but didn't hesitate. The fuel cell itself, 40 pounds at least, being lifted out by a 12-year-old boy whose arms trembled with the weight. Anderson leaned closer to the monitor. Tyler was reversing the fuel cell, checking connections against diagrams in his notebook, reinstalling everything with meticulous care. Then the moment that made Anderson's hands tighten around his coffee mug. Tyler sitting in the driver's seat, turning the key, and the engine humming to life. The dashboard lighting up. The boy's face, exhausted, amazed, scared, proud, all at once. "David," Anderson whispered to the empty office, "your son just fixed a $2 million prototype that defeated 3 professional shops." He watched Tyler carefully shut down the system, return everything to its original state, and leave. The timestamp showed 7:42 p.m. The boy had worked for nearly 2 hours, alone, driven by nothing but knowledge and determination. Anderson sat back in his chair, his mind racing. 20 years ago, David Hayes had saved his life. A highway accident, Anderson's car flipping, gasoline leaking. David, a complete stranger, had pulled him out seconds before the vehicle exploded. They'd stayed in touch for years after. David had even worked at this shop for a while, before moving to aerospace engineering. When David died 2 years ago, Anderson had tried to help the family, offered Linda Hayes any support she needed. But pride, the same pride he saw in Tyler, had made them accept only the bare minimum. The job sweeping floors, $50 a week, nothing more. Now David's son had accomplished something extraordinary, and he'd hidden it. Expected no credit. Planned to watch others take recognition for his work. That ended today. Anderson heard the mechanics arriving. He checked the clock, 6:15 a.m. Rick would be first, always was. The man's dedication to work was admirable, even if his treatment of Tyler wasn't. Anderson stood, straightened his shirt, and walked out to the garage. Rick was already examining the prototype, coffee in hand, preparing for another day of frustrated troubleshooting. "Morning, boss," Rick said without looking up. "Gonna crack this thing today, I can feel it." "Is that so?" Anderson kept his voice neutral. "Yeah, I think I figured out the issue last night. Just need to confirm my theory." Rick's confidence was absolute. "Probably gonna be something with the fuel cell polarity. Always is with these experimental systems." Anderson said nothing, just watched. Carlos arrived next, then Mike and Danny. By 6:30, the whole crew was there, gathering around the prototype like mourners at a funeral. "All right," Rick announced. "Let me show you what I'm thinking. We're gonna pull the fuel cell and check the—" He stopped. The engine was humming. The dashboard was lit up. "What the—" Rick turned the key off, then on again. The system powered up smoothly, perfectly. "How is this, boss?" Mike looked at Anderson. "Did you work on this last night?" "No," Anderson said. "But someone did." Rick was running diagnostics, his face shifting from confusion to disbelief. "This is impossible. The fuel cell polarity is correct now. It was wrong yesterday, I'm sure of it. But now, it was wrong yesterday. Anderson confirmed. And someone fixed it. Around 7 p.m. The mechanics exchanged glances. Who? Rick demanded. Who was here? Did you call in another shop? I didn't call anyone, Anderson said. Why don't we check the security footage? Rick's face went pale. Security footage? I review it every morning, Anderson said calmly. Come on, let's see who our mystery mechanic is. They crowded into the office, leaving Tyler, who'd just arrived and was starting his morning sweep, alone in the main garage. Anderson pulled up the footage, starting at 6 p.m. There, he said, pointing as Tyler appeared on screen. Our 12-year-old janitor. The office fell silent as they watched Tyler work. The notebook, the careful removal of the fuel cell, the reversed installation, the moment of triumph when the engine started. No way, Mike breathed. That kid fixed a $2 million prototype? That kid, Anderson corrected, understood what the problem was yesterday, and you all laughed at him. Rick's jaw was clenched so tight Anderson could see the muscles jumping. He got lucky. Probably broke something else and it happened to work temporarily. The diagnostics show everything's perfect, Carlos pointed out quietly. Not lucky. Skilled. He's 12 years old. Rick's voice rose. He sweeps floors. He doesn't have the training, the experience. He has his father's knowledge, Anderson interrupted. David Hayes was one of the best engineers I ever met, and apparently he passed that gift to his son. Anderson walked out of the office, the mechanics following. Tyler was in the corner, organizing tools, trying to be invisible as always. Tyler, Anderson called. Come here, son. Tyler's face went white. He approached slowly, like someone walking to their execution. You fixed the Whitmore engine, Anderson said. It wasn't a question. Tyler's hands trembled. I'm sorry. I know I wasn't supposed to touch it. I saw what was wrong and I thought... His voice cracked. I'm sorry. I'll pay for any damage. It'll take me a while, but I'll... Damage? Anderson smiled. Son, you fixed it. Perfectly. The question is, why didn't you tell anyone? Tyler looked at the floor. Who would believe me? The words hung in the air like an accusation. I would have believed you, Carlos said quietly. Would you? Tyler looked up, and there were tears in his eyes now. Yesterday, I tried to tell you what was wrong, and everyone laughed. Mr. Donovan asked if the engine ran on water, made fun of me in front of everyone. Rick's face flushed. I didn't. That's not... You told me I was here to clean, not think, Tyler continued, his voice stronger now. You said I should stick to what I'm good at. So I did. I swept the floors. And then when everyone left, I fixed your impossible engine. Because that's what I'm actually good at. Not that anyone cared to find out. The garage was silent except for the hum of the fixed prototype. How did you know? Mike asked. How did you figure out what we missed? My father's notebook, Tyler said. He worked on hydrogen fuel cell systems. Left me all his research. I've been studying it for 2 years. When I saw the Whitmore engine, I recognized the design. Saw the fuel cell was backward. It was obvious. Obvious, Rick repeated, his voice bitter. A 12-year-old kid thinks a $2 million engineering problem is obvious. It is, Tyler said simply. If you know what you're looking at. My dad always said the hardest problems usually have simple solutions. You just have to be willing to see them. Anderson felt something shift in his chest. David Hayes used to say exactly that. The same words, the same wisdom. Mr. Whitmore is coming at 9 a.m. to check on our progress, Anderson said. When he gets here, we're going to show him a working engine, and Tyler is going to be the one to explain how we fixed it. What? Rick stepped forward. Boss, with all respect, the client expects professional. The client expects results, Anderson interrupted. Tyler delivered those results. He gets the credit. And the $20,000? Mike asked. Everyone looked at Anderson. Tyler fixed the engine, Anderson said. Tyler gets the payment. Tyler's legs nearly gave out. 20,000? You earned it, Anderson said firmly. Fair payment for fair work. Rick's face was purple now. This is insane. You're going to give 20 grand to a kid who got lucky once? What message does that send? That experience doesn't matter? That training doesn't matter? That anyone with a notebook can... It sends the message, Anderson interrupted, his voice hard now. That in my shop, we value results over ego, skill over seniority, truth over pride. If you have a problem with that, Rick, there's the door. Rick looked like he'd been slapped. You'd fire me? Over this? I'd fire you for how you treated this boy yesterday, Anderson said, mocking him, humiliating him, making him feel small because he knew something you didn't. That's not the kind of mechanic I want in my shop. I was just being cruel to a 12-year-old orphan who works here to help his struggling aunt pay rent, Anderson finished. I know exactly what you were doing, and it stops now. Carlos stepped forward. Mr. Anderson, I should have said something yesterday. When Tyler was being treated that way. I'm sorry, Tyler. I should have stood up for you. Tyler looked surprised. It's okay. It's not okay, Carlos said. But I'll do better. We all will. Mike and Danny nodded, looking uncomfortable but sincere. Rick stood alone, isolated by his own arrogance. I've been here 20 years, Rick said quietly. And in 20 years you learned experience, Anderson replied. But you forgot humility. Tyler here has humility and brilliance. I know which one I'd rather build a shop around. At 8:55, a Mercedes pulled into the lot. Mr. James Whitmore stepped out, followed by a younger man carrying a briefcase. The billionaire looked tired, resigned to hearing more bad news about his failed prototype. Gentlemen, Whitmore said as he entered, tell me you have something. Anything. Because if this engine doesn't work, I'm shutting down the entire project. Millions of dollars down the drain. It works, Anderson said simply. Whitmore blinked. What? Your engine. It's fixed. Tyler, would you show Mr. Whitmore? Tyler's hands shook as he approached the prototype. All eyes were on him. The mechanics, the millionaire, the assistant with the briefcase. His father's notebook felt heavy in his back pocket. The fuel cell polarity was reversed, Tyler explained, his voice quiet but steady. When hydrogen molecules split, the catalyst only works if electrical current flows in the right direction. Your assembly team installed it backward. Once I corrected the orientation, he turned the key and the engine hummed to life. Everything worked as designed. Whitmore stared at the running engine, then at Tyler, then at Anderson. A child fixed my $2 million engine? A very brilliant child with a very brilliant father, Anderson said. Tyler, tell Mr. Whitmore about David Hayes. And Tyler, standing in an auto shop in Houston, 12 years old with grease under his nails and his father's wisdom in his heart, began to tell his story. Tyler's voice was quiet in the suddenly silent garage, but every word carried the weight of 2 years of grief. My father was David Hayes, he began, looking at Mr. Whitmore but seeing past him, into memory. He was an aerospace engineer, worked on fuel cell technology for NASA, hydrogen propulsion systems. He said they were the future, clean energy, no emissions, just water vapor. Whitmore leaned forward, his expensive suit forgotten, his billion-dollar concerns temporarily set aside. Go on. He died 2 years ago. Car accident on I-45. Tyler's hands clenched. A reckless driver ran a red light. Dad didn't have a chance. The mechanics shifted uncomfortably. Even Rick looked away. Before he died, he gave me his research notebook. Everything he'd learned about hydrogen fuel cells, electric hybrids, next-generation propulsion. He made me promise I'd keep learning, keep studying, even after. Tyler's voice broke. Even after he was gone. Anderson's hand rested on Tyler's shoulder, steady and warm. Every night for 2 years I've read that notebook, Tyler continued. Taught myself the physics, the engineering, the math. Not because I had to, because it made me feel close to him, like we were still working together. So when you saw my engine, Whitmore started. I recognized the design, Tyler said. It's based on principles my father pioneered. The hydrogen fuel cell configuration, the way it interfaces with the electric motors. He had sketches of almost the exact same system in his notebook. That's how I knew the polarity was reversed. I'd seen the correct configuration dozens of times. Whitmore stood there. This man who'd built a fortune on being the smartest person in every room, looking at a 12-year-old with something like awe. Your father was David Hayes, Whitmore repeated slowly. David Hayes from the Advanced Propulsion Lab? Tyler nodded. I knew him, Whitmore said, his voice thick. Not well, but I knew his work. He presented at a conference I attended 5 years ago, Revolutionary Concepts. The entire industry was watching him. He paused. I heard about the accident. It was a tremendous loss. For me, too, Tyler whispered. The silence stretched, heavy, with shared grief. Then Anderson spoke. his voice carrying decades of emotion. David Hayes saved my life. Everyone turned to look at him. 20 years ago, Anderson continued, I was driving home from a job in Austin. Tire blew out on the highway. Car flipped. I was trapped, gasoline leaking everywhere. I could smell it, knew what was coming. His eyes were distant, reliving the terror. Then this man appeared. Young engineer, just happened to be driving by. He pulled me out 30 seconds before the car exploded. Tyler's eyes widened. That was you? That was me, Anderson confirmed. David refused any reward. Said helping people was its own payment. But I never forgot. We stayed friends. He even worked here for a while, between engineering jobs. That's how I knew. He looked at Tyler. That's how I knew how brilliant he was. When David died, Anderson continued, his voice heavy, I tried to help Linda and Tyler. Offered everything I could. But Hayes' family pride, he smiled sadly. They only accepted what they felt they'd earned. The job sweeping floors, $50 a week, nothing more. We didn't want charity, Tyler said softly. I know, Anderson replied. David was the same way. Proud, noble, sometimes too proud for his own good. He looked at Whitmore. So when I saw this boy fix your impossible engine, using his father's knowledge, working alone because nobody would listen, I realized David's legacy isn't just in notebooks and research papers. It's in his son. Whitmore pulled out his phone, made a call. Jennifer, I need you to cut a check. $20,000. Made out to... He looked at Tyler. Tyler Hayes. Yes, immediately. Bring it to Anderson's Premium Auto. He ended the call. My assistant will be here in 20 minutes with your payment. Tyler couldn't process it. $20,000. More money than he'd ever imagined having. That engine, Whitmore said, gesturing at the prototype, was supposed to launch my company's new division. Clean transportation, zero emissions, the future David Hayes believed in. 3 shops told me it couldn't be fixed. I was ready to scrap the entire project. He looked at Tyler with something like reverence. You saved it. You saved your father's vision. I just fixed a fuel cell, Tyler said. No, Whitmore corrected gently. You proved that brilliance isn't about age or credentials. It's about knowledge, dedication, and the courage to speak up even when everyone says you're wrong. He glanced at Rick. Some people never learn that lesson. Rick's face was stone, but Tyler could see the fury simmering beneath. Mr. Anderson, Rick said, his voice tight. Can I speak with you? Privately. Anything you need to say you can say here, Anderson replied. Rick's jaw worked. Fine. You're really going to let this kid, who got lucky one time, collect $20,000 while the mechanics who've dedicated their careers to this shop get nothing? Tyler didn't get lucky, Carlos said, stepping forward. He studied. He learned. He solved a problem we couldn't. He's 12, Rick exploded. He doesn't have certificates, licenses, years of experience. He has something better, Anderson interrupted. He has genuine understanding. You looked at that engine and saw a puzzle. Tyler looked at it and saw his father's legacy. That's the difference. So experience means nothing? Rick's voice rose. Training means nothing? 20 years of loyalty means nothing? Experience means everything, Anderson said quietly. But experience without humility is just arrogance. And I won't have arrogance in my shop anymore. The meaning was clear. Rick's face went white. You're firing me? I'm giving you a choice, Anderson said. You can apologize to Tyler for how you treated him. You can acknowledge that you were wrong, that he deserves respect regardless of his age, and you can commit to being better. He paused. Or you can leave. The garage held its breath. Rick looked at Tyler, this small, grieving boy who'd accomplished what Rick couldn't. And Tyler saw the war happening behind Rick's eyes. Pride versus survival. Ego versus humility. I'm sorry, Rick said finally, the words forced through clenched teeth. I was dismissive. It won't happen again. It wasn't sincere. Tyler could hear the resentment, the fury barely contained. That's not good enough, Anderson said. Rick's head snapped up. What? A real apology requires understanding what you did wrong, Anderson said. You didn't just dismiss Tyler's knowledge. You humiliated him, made him feel worthless, crushed his confidence because he threatened yours. That's not dismissive. That's cruel. I didn't. Does this engine run on water, kid? Anderson quoted Rick's words back to him. You mocked a grieving orphan in front of his colleagues, made him ashamed of his intelligence, and you did it to protect your own ego. Rick's face was scarlet now. So here's your real choice, Anderson continued. You can give Tyler a genuine apology, acknowledging the harm you caused and committing to treat everyone in this shop with respect. Or you can pack your tools and find another shop that tolerates cruelty. The silence stretched. I'm sorry, Tyler, Rick said finally, and this time there was something different in his voice. Shame, maybe, or the beginning of actual remorse. What I said yesterday was wrong. You're smart, really smart, and I felt threatened by that. Made me act like... He stopped. Made me act like someone I don't want to be. Tyler studied Rick's face, looking for sincerity. It was there, buried under layers of pride and embarrassment. But there. Okay, Tyler said quietly. Apology accepted. Thank you, Rick said. Then, with visible effort. And congratulations on fixing the engine. You earned that money. Anderson nodded. Rick, you're suspended for a week. No pay. Use that time to think about the kind of mechanic, the kind of person you want to be. When you come back, things will be different. Rick left without another word, his shoulders slumped in a way Tyler had never seen before. Carlos approached Tyler. That took guts, accepting his apology when you didn't have to. My dad always said holding on to anger just hurts yourself, Tyler replied. Besides, Mr. Donovan is a good mechanic. He just forgot to be a good person for a while. Wise kid, Whitmore said. Your father taught you well. A car pulled into the lot. Whitmore's assistant with the check. 20 minutes later, Tyler held a piece of paper that represented more money than his family had seen in 2 years. What will you do with it? Whitmore asked. Tyler thought about the electricity bills, the overdue rent, his aunt's exhausted face after double shifts, the community college engineering program that cost too much to even consider. Pay our debts, Tyler said. Help my aunt. Maybe, he hesitated, maybe save some for school, if I'm good enough. If you're good enough? Whitmore repeated. Son, you just fixed an engine that defeated engineers with decades of experience. You're not just good enough, you're exceptional. He pulled out a business card, wrote something on the back. My private number. When you're ready for college, call me. Whitmore Industries has a scholarship program for gifted students. Full ride, any engineering school in the country. Tyler's hands shook as he took the card. Thank you. Thank your father, Whitmore said. He started a legacy. You're continuing it. After Whitmore left, after the check was deposited, after the other mechanics had gone back to work with new respect in their eyes, Tyler stood in the garage with Anderson. Your father would be proud, Anderson said. I miss him, Tyler replied, the words he could never say suddenly pouring out. Every day, every time I open that notebook, every time I fix something, I wish he was here to see it. He sees it, Anderson said firmly. I don't know how the universe works, Tyler, but I know that a man like David Hayes doesn't just disappear. His knowledge lives in you. His kindness lives in how you treated Rick today. His courage lives in how you spoke up yesterday, even knowing you'd be laughed at. Tyler wiped his eyes. Mr. Anderson, can I ask you something? Anything. When you hired me to sweep floors, was it really just about giving us work? Anderson smiled. David saved my life, Tyler. I could never repay that debt, but I could look after his family, make sure his son had a place where engines and knowledge mattered, where brilliance could grow, even if it took time for people to recognize it. Thank you, Tyler whispered. No, Anderson said, his hand on Tyler's shoulder. Thank you. For reminding this old shop that wisdom doesn't have an age requirement, that sometimes the most important voice in the room belongs to someone everyone else overlooked. That evening, Tyler walked home with a check for $20,000 in his pocket and his father's notebook in his backpack. But the real treasure wasn't the money. It was knowing that somewhere, somehow, his father's dream of a cleaner future had taken one more step toward reality, and that he, Tyler Hayes, 12 years old and still learning, had been the one to make that step possible. Tyler stood outside the apartment building for 10 minutes before he could make himself climb the stairs. The check in his pocket felt like it weighed 100 pounds, $20,000. More money than his aunt made in an entire year of double shifts, sore feet, and customers who left dollar tips on $40 bills. How did you tell someone their life was about to change? He climbed the 3 flights slowly, each step heavy with anticipation and fear. What if she didn't believe him? What if she thought he'd stolen it? What if... The door opened before he could knock. Linda Hayes stood there in her diner uniform, about to leave for the evening shift. At 35, she looked older. Exhaustion had carved lines around her eyes that hadn't been there 2 years ago. But when she saw Tyler, her face softened into the smile she always saved for him. "Hey, baby, how was work?" She grabbed her purse, checking for her keys. "I left you dinner in the fridge. Mac and cheese again, I'm sorry. Payday's Friday and—" "Aunt Linda," Tyler interrupted. "I need to show you something." Something in his voice made her stop. Really look at him. "What's wrong? Did something happen at the shop? Did Mr. Anderson—" Tyler pulled out the check. Linda stared at it, blinked, looked at Tyler, looked back at the check. "This is—" She couldn't seem to form words. "Tyler, this says $20,000. I know. This has your name on it. I know. From James Whitmore." She looked up, her eyes wide with confusion and the beginning of something that might have been hope but was afraid to become real. "Tyler, what did you do?" So he told her. Everything. The prototype engine. Rick's mockery, staying late to fix it. Anderson discovering the truth. The confrontation. Whitmore's gratitude. By the time he finished, Linda was sitting on the floor in the hallway, still in her uniform, tears streaming down her face. "You fixed a $2 million engine," she whispered. "Using Dad's notebook," Tyler said. "Everything he taught me." Linda pulled him into a hug, so tight Tyler could barely breathe. She was shaking, her tears soaking into his shirt, and Tyler realized she was crying not just from relief but from grief. For David, for everything they'd lost, and for this unexpected proof that loss could become something beautiful. "Your father would be so proud," she said, her voice muffled against his shoulder. "So incredibly proud." "I miss him," Tyler said. And suddenly he was crying too, letting out 2 years of holding it together, of being strong, of pretending that reading a notebook at night could somehow fill the hole David Hayes had left behind. They sat there in the hallway for a long time, 2 people who'd survived tragedy by leaning on each other, finally allowing themselves to believe that maybe, just maybe, things could get better. "We can pay the rent," Linda said finally, wiping her eyes. "All the back rent, the electric bill, the medical bills from the accident. Tyler, we can breathe. And you don't have to work doubles anymore," Tyler added. Linda laughed through her tears. "Let's not get crazy. But maybe I can work 1 job instead of 2. Maybe I can actually see you more than an hour a day." "I'd like that," Tyler said quietly. She looked at the check again, as if afraid it might disappear. "How did you know what to do?" "With the engine. Dad's notebook explains everything about hydrogen fuel cells. How they work, how they fail, how to fix them. I've read it so many times I have whole pages memorized." Tyler smiled. "It's like he's still teaching me." "He'd love that," Linda said. "That his research is living on through you." She stood up, helping Tyler to his feet. "We need to deposit this before I believe it's real. And then," she checked her watch, "I need to call the diner and quit the night shift." "Really? Really?" She cupped his face in her hands. "You just gave us our lives back, Tyler. The least I can do is actually be present for yours." The next morning at the shop, everything felt different. Carlos greeted Tyler with a genuine smile and a respectful nod. Mike and Danny stopped him to ask about the engine, actually listening to his explanations. Even Frank, who'd barely acknowledged Tyler's existence for 8 months, mumbled something that might have been, "Good job, kid." But the biggest change was Rick. He returned from his week-long suspension different, quieter, more careful with his words. When he saw Tyler sweeping the garage floor, he approached slowly, like someone approaching a spooked animal. "Tyler," Rick said. "Got a minute?" Tyler set down his broom. "Sure. I've been thinking," Rick began, and Tyler could see how much the words cost him. "About what Mr. Anderson said, about humility, about being the kind of person I want to be versus the person I've become." Tyler waited. "I was threatened by you," Rick continued. "A 12-year-old kid who knew things I didn't, made me feel inadequate, like my 20 years of experience didn't matter. So I tried to make you feel small, because I felt small. I never wanted to make you feel that way, Tyler said. I know, Rick replied. That's what makes it worse. You were just being yourself, brilliant and curious and willing to learn. And I punished you for it. He paused. My dad was a mechanic. Worked his whole life in shops like this. Never made much money, never got famous. But he loved the work. And he taught me that a good mechanic doesn't just fix cars. He lifts up the people around him. Rick's voice got thick. I forgot that. Got so focused on being the best that I forgot about being good. Your dad, David, he remembered. That's why people loved him. Did you know my father? Tyler asked, surprised. Met him a few times when he worked here, Rick said. Before you were born. He was... Rick smiled sadly. Everything I should have been. Smart, kind, patient. Never made anyone feel stupid for asking questions. And when he talked about you, about his son who was going to change the world, Rick's voice cracked. He was so proud. Tyler's eyes burned. So, I wanted to say thank you, Rick finished, for accepting my apology, for being the bigger person even though you're a kid and I'm supposed to be the adult, and for reminding me why I became a mechanic in the first place. Why did you? Tyler asked. Because I wanted to fix things, Rick said simply. Not just engines. Everything. Wanted to make broken things work again. Somewhere along the way, I forgot that people can be broken too, and they deserve fixing just as much as cars. Tyler thought about that. My dad used to say everyone deserves a second chance, because people aren't like engines. We can change, grow, become better versions of ourselves. Your dad was a smart man, Rick said. Then, with visible effort, would you let me teach you? Really teach you? Not just sweeping floors, but actual mechanics. You've got the theory down better than most engineers. But there's practical stuff, tool handling, safety, hands-on experience, that I could show you. Tyler's heart leaped. Really? Really? Rick confirmed. If you're willing to learn from someone who's still learning himself, I'd like that, Tyler said. Over the following days, the shop transformed around Tyler. What had once been a place where he was invisible became somewhere he belonged. Rick taught him how to properly torque bolts, how to read diagnostic codes, how to feel when an engine was right versus when something was subtly wrong. Carlos showed him welding, the sparks flying as Tyler learned to join metal with precision and care. Mike explained electrical systems, tracing wires through complex harnesses. Danny taught him about transmissions, hydraulics, and the 1,000 small things that made a vehicle run smoothly. But more than technical skills, they taught him something else, that a good shop was a family. That mechanics who respected each other could accomplish things no individual could manage alone. That asking for help wasn't weakness, it was wisdom. Anderson watched it all with quiet satisfaction, seeing his shop become what he'd always wanted it to be. A place where knowledge mattered more than ego, where talent was nurtured regardless of age, and where David Hayes' legacy lived on through his son. One afternoon, as Tyler was carefully adjusting a carburetor under Rick's supervision, the bell above the shop door chimed. Mr. Whitmore walked in, followed by a woman in a business suit carrying a leather folder. "Gentlemen," Whitmore said, "I hope I'm not interrupting." "Mr. Whitmore," Anderson greeted him. "Good to see you. How's the prototype running?" "Perfectly," Whitmore said. "Best it's ever performed. Which is why I'm here." He looked at Tyler. "Can we talk?" They gathered in Anderson's office. Tyler, Anderson, Whitmore, and the woman, who introduced herself as Jennifer Cole, director of the Whitmore Industries Education Foundation. "Tyler," Whitmore began, "I told you about our scholarship program. Full ride to any engineering school in the country." Tyler nodded, hardly daring to hope. "I've been thinking about that," Whitmore continued, "and I realized something. Waiting 4 years for you to finish high school and then college seems like a waste of extraordinary talent." Tyler's heart sank. Was he taking back the scholarship? "So I have a different proposal," Whitmore said. "Whitmore Industries is opening a new advanced propulsion research division, developing next-generation clean energy vehicles, hydrogen-electric hybrids, fully electric systems, maybe even things that haven't been invented yet." He paused. "I want you to be part of it." Tyler stared. "I'm 12. I'm aware," Whitmore said, smiling, "which is why we've developed a specialized program. You'd continue regular school, of course, but 3 afternoons a week, you'd work with our engineering team. Learn from the best in the industry. Contribute your ideas. Get hands-on experience with cutting-edge technology. Jennifer opened her folder. It's a paid internship, $15 an hour, which is more than fair for someone your age. Plus, the scholarship remains in place for college. And, she smiled, we're naming the division after your father, the David Hayes Advanced Propulsion Laboratory. Tyler couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. Anderson's hand rested on his shoulder. What do you think, son? My dad's name, Tyler whispered, on a laboratory. He deserves to be remembered, Whitmore said, and you deserve the chance to continue his work at the highest level, not someday. Now. Tyler thought about his father's notebook, worn from 2 years of constant reading. About late nights studying hydrogen fuel cells by flashlight. About a drunk driver who'd stolen his father but couldn't steal his father's dreams. Yes, Tyler said, his voice steady despite the tears on his face. Yes, I want to do it. As they finalized the details, as Anderson beamed with pride and Rick shook Tyler's hand with genuine warmth, Tyler realized something profound. His father had saved Anderson's life 20 years ago, and now, through Tyler, David Hayes was saving lives in a different way, by making the future cleaner, safer, and more sustainable. The boy who'd been mocked for suggesting an engine could run differently was now helping to build engines that would power the world. And somewhere, Tyler knew, his father was smiling. 9 months after Tyler Hayes fixed an impossible engine, he stood in front of 300 high school students at Houston Technical Academy, wearing a shirt that actually fit and holding a microphone that no longer shook in his hands. He was 13 now, taller, more confident, but still carrying his father's worn notebook in his backpack. Not because he needed it anymore, but because some connections were too precious to leave behind. My name is Tyler Hayes, he began, and the auditorium fell silent. And I'm here to tell you that the world will try to convince you that you're not ready, that you're too young, too inexperienced, too different, that you should wait your turn, stay quiet, and let the adults handle things. He paused, looking out at faces that ranged from skeptical to curious to hopeful. I'm here to tell you that's wrong. Behind him on the screen, a photo appeared. Tyler at 12, sweeping a garage floor, barely visible in the background while mechanics worked. This was me 9 months ago. I cleaned floors for $50 a week. I was invisible. And when I tried to speak up, when I knew the answer to a problem that had defeated experienced professionals, I was laughed at, mocked, told I was here to clean, not to think. Another photo, the Whitmore prototype engine, complex and beautiful. This engine was supposed to be impossible. 3 professional shops said it couldn't be fixed. But I fixed it, not because I was special. Because I had knowledge, curiosity, and a father who taught me that understanding matters more than credentials. Tyler's voice grew stronger. My father, David Hayes, died when I was 10. Drunk driver. One moment he was here, teaching me about hydrogen fuel cells and clean energy. The next moment he was gone, and I thought that meant his dreams died too. The auditorium was absolutely silent now. But here's what I learned. Dreams don't die when people do. They live on in everyone who remembers them, in every person who refuses to give up, in every kid who reads a notebook by flashlight and decides that knowledge is power. He clicked to the next slide, the David Hayes Advanced Propulsion Laboratory. Glass and steel, beautiful and modern, with his father's name in letters 3 feet tall. This is where I work now. 3 afternoons a week, I'm part of a team developing next-generation clean energy vehicles, the same technology my father pioneered. And yes, he smiled, I'm 13, and yes, I'm usually the youngest person in the room, but I'm there because I earned it, because when the world said I wasn't ready, I proved them wrong. A student raised her hand. How did you deal with people not believing in you? Tyler thought about Rick Donovan, about the laughter, about feeling small and worthless and invisible. I almost didn't, he admitted. There were days I wanted to quit, days I thought maybe they were right. Maybe I was just a kid who should stick to sweeping floors. But then I'd remember something my father taught me. He pulled out the notebook, holding it up so everyone could see its worn cover. He said that being right isn't about being comfortable. It's about having the courage to speak up, even when you know people will doubt you. Even when it's easier to stay quiet, because silence protects your ego, But truth changes the world. Another photo appeared. Tyler working alongside engineers at the laboratory, his small hands carefully assembling components while adults twice his age watched and learned. In the last 9 months, I've helped develop 3 new fuel cell configurations. One of them is going into production next year. It'll power electric buses in 6 major cities. 0 emissions. Clean energy. My father's dream, becoming reality. He paused. But the best part isn't the engineering. It's the people who told me I couldn't do it, who now ask me how I did it. It's the mechanics who laughed at me, who now teach me and learn from me. It's watching people realize that talent doesn't have an age requirement. A boy in the back called out, "What about the guy who mocked you? The one who asked if the engine ran on water?" Tyler smiled. Rick Donovan is one of my best teachers now. He made mistakes, big ones, but he owned them, apologized genuinely, and changed. That takes more courage than being right the first time. I respect him for that. The students murmured, surprised by the answer. That's another lesson my father taught me, Tyler continued. Holding on to anger is like drinking poison and expecting someone else to get sick. Rick hurt me, but he grew, and I chose to grow with him rather than stay stuck in resentment. After the presentation, students swarmed Tyler with questions. A girl with thick glasses and paint-stained hands approached shyly. "I'm Maya," she said. "I'm really good at art, like really good. But my guidance counselor says I should focus on practical subjects, that art doesn't pay bills." Her eyes welled up. "Did anyone ever tell you to give up?" Tyler thought about everyone who'd dismissed him as just a janitor, just a kid, just someone who should know his place. "Everyone told me to give up," he said honestly. "Except the people who mattered. My aunt, who worked herself to exhaustion so I could stay in school. Mr. Anderson, who saw potential when everyone else saw a janitor. And my father, even though he's gone, because his notebook kept telling me I was capable of more." He looked at Maya directly. "If you're really good at art, don't let anyone convince you that beauty doesn't matter. The world needs engineers like me to build things, but it needs artists like you to remind us why those things are worth building. Your gift matters." Maya wiped her eyes. "Thank you." As the crowd thinned, Tyler found himself face to face with a boy who looked angry. "Must be nice," the boy said, "having rich people give you opportunities. Some of us don't have billionaires offering scholarships." Tyler recognized the bitterness. He'd felt it himself, watching wealthy people drive cars worth more than his entire life. "You're right," Tyler said. "I got lucky, mister. Whitmore could have taken credit for fixing his engine, could have ignored me, could have moved on. But he didn't. And you want to know why?" The boy waited, skeptical. "Because I gave him something to notice," Tyler said. "I didn't wait for permission. I didn't ask if I was allowed. I saw a problem, I had a solution, and I implemented it. The opportunity came after I'd already proven myself." He pulled out a business card, his own now from the David Hayes Laboratory. "If you're serious about learning, about working, about proving you're more than your circumstances, email me. We have a summer internship program for high school students. No connections required, just curiosity and dedication." The boy took the card, his anger shifting to something that might have been hope. That evening, Tyler returned to Anderson's Premium Auto. It wasn't required. His internship at Whitmore Industries was separate. But the shop had become home in ways that went beyond employment. Rick was working on a transmission, his hands sure and steady. When he saw Tyler, he smiled. "How'd the school talk go?" "Good," Tyler said. "Lots of questions." "Did they ask about me? About the 'does this run on water' thing?" Rick's smile was self-deprecating now, able to laugh at his own past cruelty in a way that showed real growth. "They did," Tyler confirmed. "I told them you're a good teacher who had to learn how to be a good person first." Rick's hand stilled on the transmission. "That's generous." "It's true," Tyler said. "You're not the same person who mocked me. Neither of us are the same people we were 9 months ago." Carlos appeared from under a Mustang, wiping oil from his hands. "Tyler, got a question about the fuel injection system. You got a minute?" They spent an hour troubleshooting, Tyler explaining the theory while Carlos applied the practical knowledge. It was partnership now, not hierarchy. The shop had transformed from a place where age determined value to somewhere wisdom could come from anywhere. Linda arrived around 6 to pick Tyler up. She looked different too, rested, healthy, wearing clothes that weren't stained with ketchup and grease. The day job at the dental office paid less than waitressing, but the hours were predictable and the work was dignified. For the first time in 2 years, she looked like someone living rather than just surviving. "Ready, baby?" she asked. "Almost," Tyler said. He turned to Anderson, who was in his office reviewing invoices. "Mr. Anderson, can I ask you something?" Anderson looked up, his weathered face creasing into a smile. "Always. Why did you really hire me? Was it just because my dad saved your life?" Anderson set down his pen. "Partially. David pulled me from a burning car 20 years ago, and I could never repay that. But the real reason?" He stood, walking over to place a hand on Tyler's shoulder. "I hired you because I saw David in you. That same curiosity, that same refusal to accept impossible as an answer. I knew that if I could just give you space to grow, you'd become something extraordinary. Did you know I'd fix the Whitmore engine?" "No," Anderson admitted. "But I knew you'd do something remarkable eventually. I just had to make sure you survived long enough to get the chance." Tyler hugged him. This man who'd been father figure and mentor and friend all wrapped into one gruff, oil-stained package. "Thank you," Tyler whispered. "For everything." "Thank your father," Anderson replied. "I'm just keeping a promise." At home, over dinner that wasn't mac and cheese for the first time in recent memory, Linda asked about the school presentation. "How many students were there?" she asked. 300, Tyler said. "And most of them looked bored until I showed them Dad's notebook. Then they leaned forward, started asking real questions. About failure and persistence and whether intelligence means anything if you're too scared to use it." Linda's eyes shimmered. "Your father would have loved that. He always said his research was meaningless if it died with him, that the whole point of discovery was passing it on, making the next generation smarter than you were." "I'm trying," Tyler said. "Mr. Whitmore wants me to start mentoring younger kids next summer. Middle schoolers interested in engineering. Show them that you don't have to wait until you're an adult to start changing things. You'll be good at that," Linda said. "You've always been patient. Like David." They talked late into the evening, this aunt and nephew who'd survived loss by clinging to each other, now able to remember the past without drowning in it. The $20,000 had changed their circumstances, but the real change was deeper. The shift from surviving to thriving, from existing to building. Later, Tyler sat at his desk studying advanced propulsion theory for his work at the laboratory tomorrow. His father's notebook sat beside the new textbooks, a bridge between past and future. His phone buzzed. A text from Maya, the artist from the school presentation. "I told my counselor I'm pursuing art. She said I was making a mistake, but I remembered what you said, that beauty matters. Thank you for helping me be brave." Tyler smiled and replied, "Being brave gets easier with practice. Keep creating." Another text, this time from the angry boy who'd challenged him. "I emailed about the internship. Hope you meant it." Tyler wrote back, "I meant it. Interviews next month. Bring your curiosity." Then a message from Rick. "Thanks for what you said today, about second chances. I won't waste mine." Tyler looked around his small bedroom, no longer cramped and desperate, but cozy and full of possibility. At the scholarship letters from 3 universities already interested in a 13-year-old engineering prodigy. At the photo of his father in his NASA uniform, proud and brilliant, and gone too soon. "I'm doing it, Dad," Tyler whispered. "Your hydrogen fuel cells are powering buses. Your research is saving the planet. Your notebook is teaching kids that knowledge is freedom. And his voice cracked, "I'm becoming the person you believed I could be." The next morning, Tyler returned to the David Hayes Advanced Propulsion Laboratory. His name badge read Junior Research Associate, but the title meant less than the work. He was part of something bigger than himself, building the future his father had imagined. In the main lab, engineers were testing a new fuel cell configuration Tyler had suggested, an improvement on his father's original design that increased efficiency by 12%. It was working. The data was solid. The project lead, Dr. Sarah Chen, called everyone to watch the results. "This," she announced to the assembled team, "is what happens when we stop gatekeeping knowledge based on age." when we listen to brilliant ideas regardless of who presents them. Tyler Hayes is 13 years old and just revolutionized our entire approach to hydrogen compression. The applause was genuine. No one was humoring a kid. They were acknowledging a colleague. And Tyler realized something profound. He'd stopped being the boy who fixed an impossible engine to prove he was smart. He'd become the engineer who solved problems because solving problems mattered. The difference was everything. That afternoon, returning to Anderson's shop, Tyler found Mr. Whitmore waiting with unexpected news. "The buses we're launching next year. The ones with your fuel cell configuration?" Whitmore said. "Houston's buying 50 of them, and they want you at the ribbon-cutting ceremony. You and David's photo. Recognition that this technology exists because a father taught his son to dream, and a son refused to let those dreams die." Tyler felt tears threatening. "My dad's photo at a city ceremony? Your father revolutionized this technology," Whitmore said. "You perfected it. Houston deserves to know whose vision is powering their future." As Whitmore left, Rick approached Tyler with something in his hands, a framed photo of David Hayes in his shop uniform from the years he'd worked at Anderson's. "Found this in the archives," Rick said. "Thought you should have it. Reminder that your dad wasn't just an engineer. He was one of us, a mechanic who got his hands dirty and loved the work." Tyler took the photo, seeing his father young and happy, covered in grease and grinning at the camera. "Thank you," Tyler said. "No," Rick replied. "Thank you for showing me that being the best mechanic means helping others become better. Your dad knew that. I forgot. You reminded me." And Tyler understood, finally, what his father's legacy really was. Not the research papers or the patents or even the laboratory bearing his name. It was the ripple effect of goodness, one man saving another's life, leading to a shop that valued wisdom over age, leading to a boy who fixed engines and hearts in equal measure, leading to students who learned that courage matters more than comfort, leading to cities running on clean energy, leading to a future where dreams didn't die with dreamers. His father had saved Robert Anderson from a burning car, and through Tyler, David Hayes was still saving people. One engine, one dream, one act of courage at a time.